about security here, man. We hear a lot about security, especially with the NSA revelations and Snowden. I mean, can open source provide a claim of better security than a proprietary cloud? Or is it just a red herring either way? Peter, what's your sense of that?
So I think it's probably a red herring either way, right? We're so early on in the cloud space. Yeah, sure, we're 10 plus years in, but I think down in the layers that we play, we're so early on. We're learning about new things, and the market changing so much that I can't necessarily say that I'm going to give you better security against the NSA than the next guy. Mm-hmm. So I think this comes back to working on best practices about securing your data center and data center services the same way you would proprietary or not, or open, web services, or even hosted data centers. It all comes into how you set it up and practice it yourself.
But there's not going to be a sense, and Devin, please take a swing if you would. There's not going to be a sense of, hey, if a hacker can see the code, if it's going to be more open, that makes it more vulnerable. Is that an old, tired argument, or open source and security? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I've never really bought that argument personally, because they're going to find the exploits one way or another. But if you have an open source community around it, they can actually go and fix them much quicker. So it's all about having a healthy process around how you actually patch vulnerabilities and embargo the announcements and all these kinds of standard practices. But really, when we're talking about security in the cloud, I mean, that's a huge topic. And open source software just by itself is not any more or less secure than proprietary software, but it's about the community and the type of interactions and how we are able to fix and identify vulnerabilities, and then how we can be transparent about them. So if you have a question about how something works and whether or not something is properly secured, you can actually go look at the code and for your own sake get reasonably comfortable that that's good code. And we also focus a lot on the software itself, but it's about the entire system. I mean, it's from the data center to the physical hardware to securing the hypervisor and securing the kernel, and there's all these different layers. And the very last layer on top of that is the actual cloud management software. So there's a number of layers there that we have to be concerned with, but fundamentally, there's a security group in the OpenStack community that goes through and actually does security audits on the code, publishes their findings. They do sprints to go through and fix the bugs. They publish actual books on security for OpenStack for everyone to benefit from in terms of best practices. So it's not a binary yes, no, this is more secure. It's about the framework that we have to enable us to be more secure in the long run, and to be able to, I think, prove that. So there's no magic silver bullet for security here, but I think when you are able to go and look at the code and have proper processes and a community that really rallies behind those efforts, I think everybody wins.
Mm-hmm. Martin, security, I mean, can open source really make a claim of better security, or not really?
Absolutely. It has been shown already over a decade that open source software on average has fewer vulnerabilities per line of code or per 1,000 lines of code than closed source code. So tests by Coverity and others. And at Eucalyptus, we have a security team, we have a responsible security manager, we fix them very quickly. And it's very important that the world can help us fix it, because at the end of the day, there are more good guys than bad guys. And the bad guys get access anyhow, but when you give the good guys access, you get better security. And let's remember that private cloud is a question of giving customers control over their own cloud. To give them complete control, you also give them the source code. And they don't have to change it, but they can validate it and verify it for themselves and make sure that there are no loopholes, no hidden backdoors, or nothing in there. And you never know with closed source code what's inside. You can never know.
Gordon, security, open source, what's your sense on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of this old saw about, if people can see the source code, that'll make things less secure. I mean, that's been pretty effectively disproven.
I think I first heard that in like 2004.
Yeah. I mean, and it came about because people who didn't, frankly, know very much about security penetrations in software and the like, we're sort of like, well, a bank doesn't publish the blueprints for its alarm system.
Well,
so,
there you go. Sure.
You know, so it's the same thing we're talking about. Of course, that's nonsense. I mean, so you know, that makes absolutely no sense. And as Martin has said, there's actually been a lot of studies that have shown in many cases, for many comparisons, open source software can actually be more secure. I do want to emphasize a point that Peter made, though, about, you know, kind of talking about security or really broader issues of compliance and audit and so forth. This is a very big, complicated subject. If you look at somebody like the Cloud Security Alliance has published basically a model for people to follow, that organizations can follow to look at security and compliance issues, and it's got, I forget the number, but something like at least 100 different points for people to look at and subsets to each of those. So I would really encourage for anybody who is really kind of thinking about security to look at some of these models that are out there, like the Cloud Security Alliances, and really go through it in detail.